Chapter 10. We went to our beds early. If we had left the door open, we could have seen the sky, still bright, with the sun just beginning to slide away in back of the cliffs. We didn't do that, though. We didn't want to see those poor black potatoes taken by the She. We didn't want to smell what was left of them. Instead, we lay there with only the gleam from the smored fire worrying. Overhead, the hens were clucking on their rope. They made me think of Maggie. Long ago, she had strung that rope across the eaves for them to roost. The thing about hens, she had said, is that they argue every night, clucking away. They're trying to decide whether they should fly back to Norway, where they first came from. I remembered watching as she said, "Be kind to them so they'll stay one more day and lay another egg or two for us." And now, Celia was saying we'd be wringing their necks for 3 meals. I shuddered. What about the eggs? "We'll close the door and go to Maggie in Brooklyn, New York," Celia said. "We'll do that straight away." Horses clopping down the street, milk in pails, froth on top. "We'll ask Sean Red to write us a letter," Celia said, "to tell Maggie we're coming." I didn't say that Sean only knew letters, not words, and that not all of the letters anyway. I cleared my throat. "What money will you use to send the letter?" I asked. "And what to get us on a ship?" She sighed. "We'll wait for Da. Yes, all we have to do is find food for each day. Maybe we could do that." The hens stopped their clucking. They were going to stay another day with us as well. My eyes wanted to close. "We'll have eggs," I said. Next to me, Patch was almost asleep too. "Eggs, eggs, eggs," he whispered, and was still. "And we'll eat just one meal every night," Celia said. "We can spend our time searching for food." I went to sleep at last and dreamed of Anna. I couldn't remember what it was, but in the morning I awoke suddenly, my heart pounding, a sharp pain in my stomach. Celia dragged herself up across me and opened the door to let the hens out. I pulled the cover up over my nose. "Close the door quickly," I said. "The smell is—" I couldn't even think of a word. "Fufar," Celia said. "Fufar. Disgusting." Yes. I had to get up. I had to do something. "Aha!" Celia reached into Biddy's basket. "A nice brown egg for Patch." She smiled at him. "I will cook it for you this minute." I rolled out of the straw and onto my knees to say my morning prayers. I prayed that I would look out the door and the smell would be gone and the potatoes would be growing strong in the stony field. But I knew that wouldn't happen. "I will go now to Anna's," I told them as I stood up. Celia began to cry. "We just have to hold on, all of us," she said through her tears. I turned back to her and put my arms around her. "We will," I said, "somehow." For a moment, she cried even harder. Then she patted my cheeks. I went across the field, pictures of Da in my head, one after another, his blue eyes, the color of the sky over Maiden Bay, his arms strong, angling for a fish from the cliff top. He leaned forward as he told stories about his first fishing trip, about meeting Mem with her curls tied back with a piece of string. I wanted him so much I could almost feel his arms around us, and I reached out with my own arms. But instead of Da, Patch had come along in back of me, the bottom of his skirt dragging. He put one hand in mine and pointed with the other. "Sean Red there." I saw him too, going over the road, his brothers with him. They carried the cottage over their heads so that only their legs showed beneath them. The cottage looked like a great black beetle inching itself toward the sea. "They're on their way to catch fish." I wondered if I could go with them someday. Would there be room? I'd work hard, I'd tell them, if they'd give me a place and a bit of catch to take home. I wasn't good with the oars, and they all knew it. "Nory?" Patch tugged on my arm. "I have the hunger." "I know it," I said, "but you will be strong." I tried to think, strong as Cuchulainn, the great warrior. He shook his head hard. "I just want my nice potato." I bent down and rocked him. "Your eyes are leaking tears," I said. He tried to smile, looking down, his eyelashes long on his cheeks. "I'm hungry too," I said, "but we won't think about it. We'll go to Anna's." "And she'll give us milk from the cow?" I shook my head. "She needs her own milk." "Then why are we going there?" "I will help her." I squeezed his hand. In the distance, the rocks glinted on the hills. It seemed as if a soft green cloth was stretched over them. I saw another world up there, clean and fresh smelling, but with nothing to feed any of us. Patch pointed at a gannet flying up overhead, its neck reaching. He began the saying, "One to be sad." We waited for a second bird. "Two to be glad," I said. Patch was smiling. 3 to get married, he said as the third bird caught up with the other two. And then we were at Anna's open door. Do you want me to milk the cow? I called in. I have milked my own cow. She came outside, shading her eyes against the sun. Then what will I do? She reached out, pointing to the fields. They will strip the land, she said. Who? Everyone who is hungry. I'm hungry, Pat said. I'm very hungry. She went inside her house and was back a moment later with a small wooden bowl in her hand. It was half filled with milk. Drink slowly, she told him. A tap of pain in back of my eyes. Milk almost yellow with cream. She tipped the bowl into Patch's mouth and he drank it all. She stared at me, knowing I wanted a bowl of it too, knowing I wouldn't ask. You're stronger than you think, she said. I put out my chin. I'm not hungry, I said, but thank you for the milk for Patch. She nodded. Come with me now. We will gather nettles and dandelion leaves. She nodded to herself. Onions for insect bites, ivy for burns. With her cane in one hand and a basket in the other, she didn't even try to stay away from the clumps of mush on the ground. Bits of black and brown with white spreading across. Foofar. We followed her to the cemetery first. We didn't have to tell Patch to stay away from the nettles. They sting, he said, and waited at the edge of a small path. Anna had rags in her basket to wrap around her hands. I looked across at my mam's grave. She'd know what to do about potatoes and coins. My husband is there. Anna pointed her toe at a bit of ground. Anna had a husband? My son with him, she said. A little boy? I must have said it out loud because Anna shook her head. A man, grown. How had I not known that? Maggie must have known, and Granda. Maybe I had never listened. A husband? A son? Anna was ahead of me, pulling the nettles carefully so they wouldn't sting. I followed her slowly and began to pull the nettles with her. I was hungry, so hungry. I thought about the potatoes we had gathered yesterday. Just get through this day without food, I told myself. Tonight, Celia would have the potatoes bubbling in the pot, and we'd go to bed with our stomachs filled. I began to sing with Patch. Anna, still bent over the nettles, turned her head. It almost seemed as if she smiled. But that couldn't be. I had never seen Anna Donnelly smile.